As I close in on 300 hours of Elden Ring, there's only one thing that comes to mind. This game deserves some tough love. Now, I've been playing the Souls games since the North American launch of Dark Souls 1, but that doesn't mean that the games don't have issues, so I'm gonna do what people do best, and that's complain about Elden Ring for the next 4 or 5 minutes. Now, just to preface this video, one of the recurring themes is going to be, just because that's the way it's always been, doesn't mean that's the way it should be. Also, this video isn't going to be as memey as my other stuff, so feel free to alt-tab while you hear me complain. Without further ado, my name is Fishtruck, and these are 5 things that I wish were in Elden Ring. Before we get into that, one thing I wish you would do is hit that subscribe button, if you could be so kind. Thank you. Thing number 1, keep bell bearings between New Game Plus cycles. I get that it's been like this in previous games, but just because that's the way that's been done, doesn't mean that's the way it should be. It sucks that I gotta play through the whole game again to be able to experiment with my weapons, especially considering that a whole playthrough could sometimes take like 80 hours or some shit. You need max level weapons for New Game Plus anyway, so it kind of doesn't make sense to me why you should start from the beginning again. There's an insane amount of weapons in the game, but it almost feels like they discourage people from going crazy and experimenting because of the constraint on resources. I know you can purchase most everything, but still it kind of sucks that you can only get 7 or 8 max level somber smithing stones in a single playthrough. So to add on to this, just let people buy this shit. Just let them buy it. It doesn't matter. You beat the game. Buy it. Thing number 2, boss refights. I know I'm not the only person who got to the top of a divine tower, saw 2 fingers chilling in the middle of a big empty circle, and thought like, oh, there's gonna be some crazy ass boss fight up here. Then nothing happens, but you do get the Great Rune, which at least is cool. To me, these scream to be boss refights at least, and only for the shard bearer bosses, so the bosses that actually give you Great Runes. It doesn't necessarily have to be a much harder version of them, just something that's scaled to endgame. So for example, Godric's health and damage would just be scaled as if you were fighting him at the end of the game. However, someone like Millennia would probably be untouched. And as crazy as it sounds, I think that for something like this, it shouldn't give you a reward. It should just be there for people who want to do it because it's a fun thing to do. Not everything has to reward you, and I think it'd suck if people felt the need to have to refight these bosses again just because you got some Eldens out of it. Also, being able to refight bosses was in Sekiro. I know they added that after the fact, so I'm hoping that they add that with this game too, because they also put bonfires in front of these big areas. It seems like it's bound to happen. Thing number 3, this one's similar to thing number 1, and it's that you should be able to keep your Great Runes between playthroughs. I get you normally need these to get into the capital, but just on New Game Plus cycles still have it so they have to kill 2 shard bearers to make it into the city. Otherwise, to explain my point, I don't think there's any example that's better than this. Millennia's Rune is the most interesting one. It turns the game into Bloodborne. It takes the most work to get because that bitch is hard, and you get to use it the least because by the time you get it, you're at the end of the game anyway. That's fucking dumb. Thing number 4, less copy and paste in the game. I get it's open world, and with that, it's fucking huge. And this really only applies to the caves and catacombs. Seeing the boss in the caves and catacombs is cool the first time around. Seeing the beastman in the first cave, even the weird vampire dog thing in the first catacomb is cool. The first misbegotten warrior guy you find in Castle Warren, that was a cool one. But when you explore a brand new spot just to see the same boss, it just kind of loses its magic. And ironically, going back to thing 2, the least interesting bosses are the ones that you wind up refighting 6 or 7 times throughout the game. Thing number 5, and easily the spiciest thing. I know a shit ton of people are going to hate me for this, but I'm just going to say it. I wish this game had a story that existed. Lore is cool, and I know it's always been like that in these games. I like going through the lore in this game specifically. It is very interesting. However, there should at least be one central thing that I can really invest myself in, especially in a game that is this long. Biggest example of this, Melina. He shows up, gives you a horse, allows you to level up, and I'm like, hey, cool, now we're going to be buddies. Except guess what? I only get to see her like 4 or 5 more times before she fucking burns to death 75 hours into the game. At that point, I go, hey lady that jump scared me in the capital city because I forgot you existed, can you burn faster so I can see where we're going? Like I just said, I know it's been like this in previous games where the plot has been very vague, but in this game, pretty much the whole story is told through the lore, and parts where I should care, I just straight up don't. Also, half the endings are palette swaps. Don't they remember that people didn't like this when Mass Effect did it? If you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed listening to me complain about this game. I tried to condense my complaints because I can get very ranty very quickly. If you want to hear me complain about it more or be a bit more in-depth with the complaints I made here, let me know in the comments. I do have a lot more to say about the game, but those 5 were the ones I cared about the most because aside from one of them, they were all about the game's gameplay. Anywho, thank you again for watching. Like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good shit. I always appreciate you for sticking around. Until next time, bye-bye!